This is the unrivaled Keith Youngblood, and you are listening to the 3 Count Podcast.
Welcome everybody to another great edition of the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering, and I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you up that mountain called wrestling. And with this being season 5, season 6, and our 400 and something episode, I would just hope you say it with me, I am your Sherpa, because like your tribal chief, acknowledge me. But everybody knows, like every good Sherpa, you gotta have someone who's been there, done that, and can do it more efficient than you can. That's why it's never about me. It's about who's entering the ring. So who's entering the ring? You can find this man at PvP, ACW, NEW, Test of Strength, NWWE. He is hard driven, never forgiven, a badass with no problems and beating your ass. He is the man of the lost soul. He is the man that's unrivaled. He is Keith Youngblood.
Wonderful intro. I appreciate that very much.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. Hey, so no, it's like we were saying right before we jumped on the show, right? Like I remember like I was on Facebook, I had thrown out like, hey, who are some people that you want to see on the podcast? Your name got thrown out, and I wanted to reach out to you and bring you on. And then I started doing some research and learning about you and stuff. And I was like, oh, we're in the New England area. I was like, we around the block.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, again, I appreciate the fans for throwing my name out there, and I appreciate you for reaching out. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Hell yeah, man. So like I know this is gonna be like typically like the first question that's gonna be asked, but who is Keith Youngblood?
Who is Keith Youngblood? I feel like that's always a loaded question. I think Keith Youngblood is me turned up a little bit. I think that's kind of the general answer for most professional wrestlers. But I think that's the thing that is always the hardest to fine tune. I think a lot of times so many people go, okay, well, what's your character? What's your character? And of course, character is important. You need to be entertaining. You need to be somebody who can grab the fans' attention, but you also need to be somebody who's authentic. Otherwise, that won't come across and you will not grasp the fans, no matter how entertaining a character you may be. So I always find, keeping true to who you are as an individual outside of the ring helps you be who you are in the ring. So Keith Youngblood's a guy. He likes to have a good time. He likes to rock and roll with the fans. Most importantly, he likes to wrestle, man. Bell to bell. He's a fighter. He's somebody who won't be put down. He's relentless. And that's kind of the way it is.
I like that. And I think that's the number one thing too. Like as I'm still like I'm long in the tooth as far as like my age wise, but I'm young in the game as far as like me actually being in. And it's one of those things that I've learned too, is just like, if as long as you're genuine to like who you are and what you're trying to portray, like the fans are gonna gravitate towards that. Like if you're forcing something, fans are gonna see through the fakeness of it.
Always.
You had to be authentic to who you are. So I thought it was funny when I was on, I think it was on Twitter, I was on Facebook, something like that, and someone had put out there, if your character is you cranked up to 100 or to 11, then you're boring. And I was like, I beg to differ. I was like, I've seen tons of people, and I guess like the 9-10 rule always can apply, but like I've always understood it as the more authentic you are, the more you are you, the more you've invested of you and the one thing that you want to like pull out of you to portray to fans, like they're gonna connect to it because it's you. It's authentically
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. And I think it's a good point to be made there too, where you can make the argument that if it's just you turned up, you're boring, and a character that is completely opposite of your individual personality can still be engaging, but it has to be authentic in some way. There needs to be
Yeah.
a kernel of truth there that you can bite into as a performer to then flip it on its head and broadcast it. Brock Lesnar is somebody who lives on a farm in the middle of nowhere. He doesn't really prefer to be around people, and that's the way the story goes. But then he's out there in front of hundreds of thousands of people, and he's a monster, and he's an animal, and he's a killer, and it's not really the guy who's sitting at home at his ranch. That's completely different from who he is as a person. but clearly there's some authenticity there because he's a big bad dude who's going to whoop you.
Yep.
So, it can be different, but there has to be that kernel that anchors it to reality. Otherwise, like you said, the fans see through it.
Well, like even for Brock, right? Like Brock will talk about how he's kind of a loner. He wants to like he goes hunting from like September to February or whatever it is, and he doesn't like to be around a lot of people. If you look at his character consistently, like outside of Paul Heyman, it is Brock by himself. Like
Lone wolf. Yep.
he is no there's no faction. He's not tagging with no like unless tag team differently, but he's just not you've never known him to be with like all these guys and him. Like, no, it's just him. Like he's authentically that guy. And even when he
Yep.
talks about it in interviews, you hear him talk about where he's like, I don't even hear the fans. He's like, I'm just in my own world. I don't see them. He's
Yeah.
like, I try to stay away from people. Like, you don't even see him at like conventions, like signing shit. Like,
No. But
I
the
think,
people bite because
yeah,
it's real. It is
yeah,
him.
that's authentically Brock
There you
Lesnar.
go.
Also, doesn't talk a lot. Like, and there's a reason for it.
Yeah. And he doesn't need to.
No, he's got big ass hands. Like
There
I
you
think
go.
I remember when I watched him in the UFC, there was two fighters at one time that wore quadruple XL gloves, and he was one of them. And the other one was Shane Carwin. But I
Crazy.
just thought that was crazy. Yeah, because that's just like a whole nother hand, like on top, and just getting hit in the face with like a lunch truck. I was like,
Yeah.
damn,
And with this reach too, it's just like
yeah,
it's a frying pan on the end of a yardstick. You're not
yeah.
getting away from the dude.
Mm-mm. No, but to go back to the part where you can kind of see like Shawn Michaels was always like he was like in the spotlight, like he loved being in the spotlight. He was a big storyteller that was part of HBK, and whether you want to believe Sean Hicklebottom was that guy or not, it's to be determined, man. I mean, the dude got into a fight. It, whatever story you want to believe, one Marine, six Marines, three Marines, whatever it was, he got
Whatever
into
it
a
was.
fight and got beat up. You know? But he's very much the brashest, the brash, loudmouth dude, and that was persona that he had going on for him. And I look at people like, even John Cena, like, the thing about John Cena that makes him authentic is that he's very quick-witted.
Mhm.
And so when you see that persona outside, like there's that video that went viral about that kid that asked John like what's his favorite food, and he
Mhm.
was like, well, if Nikki would stand up, I'd show you.
Yeah, crazy.
He's, don't worry
Crazy.
about it, you're gonna get that in a few years. But like I was like, damn, dude. Like, this
Yeah.
is crazy.
Yeah. Maybe a little too authentic.
Yeah, too real. I think about it too. So like one of the things that I love doing is I just let my mouth do its talking, right? So whether like cutting promos or I'm just talking trash in the ring to like fans and stuff like that, or on the face side, like I like talking trash to my opponents. I think fans get it that like I'm genuinely gonna be who I am and I'm not changing the way I act. It's just the way I'm gonna make you perceive me, whether I'm wearing something different to make me look like a good guy, or I'm wearing something different to make me look like a bad guy. I want you to know that difference. And I like the fact that you said that you're just you cranked up. But what's the one trait that you feel, one or two traits that you feel like you've pulled into Keith Youngblood to make him authentically you?
I think it's always been I think I'd have to tie it back to music. I think there's always even when I wasn't inherently doing like a rock star character, I think there was always kind of that rock star charisma, or look or vibe to the character. Obviously the hair has always been a thing, but I'm normally wearing a ton of bracelets, a ton of rings, whatever. So when I started wrestling, I had like electrical tape and I would do it on the fingers that I would normally wear rings. I would put electrical tape on those fingers, so I still felt like me, and it kind of tied me and grounded me back into who I am. And I think that kind of people were calling me. That's kind of how the rock star character that I did, the rare breed, kind of started, was because even though I was doing something a little different, fans started calling me like the rock star of Northeast wrestling just based off the look, and I'm huge into 80s rock and metal and whatever. So I think that just kind of always has shown through in my personality, and I think that's kind of tied into every character I've done really my whole career.
Who's your '80s rock band? I'm sure you
Man,
have a bunch of them, but
Yeah, that's so hard to narrow down. Honestly, probably it's got to be Def Leppard.
It's got to be.
It's
That was
gotta
gonna say
be.
the
I
same.
mean, it's gotta be Def Leppard. You gotta throw Poison in there. Honestly, I'm a big Rush guy. I think Geddy Lee has one of the coolest voices in music. Like, if I
Yeah,
could sing, I would want to sound like Geddy. I don't know. There's something about it. But yeah, I mean, that whole genre and era was just very captivating.
loud hair, loud
Everything.
hair, loud everything. Yeah, Motley Crue to me definitely stands above and beyond, like, from everybody. Def Leppard, obviously. Bon Jovi
Mm.
is another great band,
Yeah,
but, everybody picks John Bon Jovi. I'm like, I get it, like, he was, like, the good-looking guy back in the '80s, but, like, there was just something about Def Leppard and Rick Savage playing the drums with one arm that just, like,
incredible.
made him so cool, and it made the band cool.
They
That
did.
you're like, they have this awesome story, and then, like, shit, you have a song like Photograph where you're literally talking about Marilyn Monroe, and it's just, I don't know, to me, like, it just, the storytelling that Def Leppard was able to put together, just,
100%.
yeah, in their songs as well as in the
Mhm.
real life was just amazing. I love listening to those guys, and I actually got to see them live, a
That's
couple
awesome.
times.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, I was supposed to do the stadium tour they did with I think it was oh, I can't remember now. They did a stadium tour a few years ago. I was supposed to go and the pandemic happened and all that. But
yeah.
yeah,
The pandemic ruins everything.
it sure did, bud.
That's when I started, was during the
Oh
pandemic.
shit.
Started 2
You
months
start,
before the pandemic.
you started training?
Yeah, I started training. Yep,
Wow.
the January
What
of
was that like?
2020.
I know you're supposed to be asking me the questions, but I'm curious. What was that
Oh,
like for you to like kick your career off in the era of no fans?
so funny enough, I started, like I said, I was started January 2020, and, yeah, mind you, I was turning 35, so I'm 34 getting into the business, and, I started taking bumps and stuff like that, and the pandemic happened, and I told myself, I was like, maybe this is, like, God
Sign.
telling me, yeah, "Hey, yo, maybe you wanna chill for this," and then, like, things opened up, and then finally, like, I started training. The weirdest thing was, um, it actually opened up a lot of opportunities to me that I didn't know that I was gonna be able to get, right? I appeared on GTS, which was kinda cool. I was
Okay.
actually a referee for, Grimm's Toy Show down in Maryland because that's where I was
Nice.
training.
Wow.
Um, and then, yeah, it got me my first match with this company at C3W with Big Trouble Ben Bishop, which was pretty
Oh
cool.
yeah. Okay. Very
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, because actually what's weird is that him and I actually started training. He started training about, like, 5 months before I did. Um, and then from there, like, it was just a lot of practice matches, and then, like, the company C3W out of, Washington, DC, well, Maryland, Washington, DC area, they had another show, and I was supposed to debut at this place called SCWA. I was supposed to go to West Virginia because they were open because, it was now August. I tore my abdomen, and
Oof.
I think I was out for 8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah,
I
that's
did it in
brutal.
July, and it was out 8 to 12 weeks, and, it was so weird because, because that happened, it forced me to focus on my character side of things and kinda uh build, like, the wrestling aspect. So I got
Yeah.
to focus more, like, on what I felt my entrance was gonna be like, how it was gonna be perceived. I picked my had my theme song that I felt like was gonna match me, the energy I had going for it. So, yeah, actually, it was kind of a blessing in disguise because I was so focused on, like, I'm gonna hit this spot. I'm gonna hit this spot. I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna hit
Of
this.
course.
Here's my sequence I want to do. Here's another sequence I'm gonna hit. Here's this, and I'm focused on all this other aspect. And then when I got hurt, it was like, who is? And funny enough, Red Dog came from, my name obviously being Clifford, Clifford Red Dog. So it being a former military thing too, it forced me to really buckle down and think about, like, hey, how do we build the world of Red Dog, the
Yeah.
mercenary? And I got a chance to do that, and then try it out with the crowd and stuff, and what little crowd I got to be in front of, I think the first show I did was, like, there's, like, 12 people, and,
That's usually how most people's first show goes, even
yeah.
when there isn't a pandemic. So no worries there.
Well, this was a place that, like, my trainer had told me, he was like, "Yeah, dude, we packed this place, it's, like, 100, people." It was 12.
Yeah.
12 people in in the middle of West Virginia, and, I give a lot of love to the company too for actually just taking a chance on me, but,
Yeah. No, of course.
the thing is, like, I tried it out, and, like, it just didn't, like, the character was so forced. Like I
Mhm.
was like trying to be too stoic as a military person. I wasn't genuine at all. And my friends who had watched wrestling and they watched me wrestle were like, "Yeah, you gotta change this, man. Like this is not you, and it feels fake." And I was like, "All right, man." And so then I started opening up and cutting promos, kind of like practicing a lot while I was still kind of injured,
Yeah.
and then just figuring who Red Dog was. I finally kind of like found a voice of him, and then started pulling it out more and more. And then so it was a blessing in disguise to wrestle with no fans and to try some stuff out, and then it was
Mhm.
fun to be able to um, learn how to shift and adapt at the same time.
Yeah, well, it's cool, and it says a lot about kind of your mentality towards wrestling and your understanding of it. Especially early on for being uh, aware enough to take that time where you were injured or where things were shut down to focus on the other avenues, the other aspects of the wrestling business, because there is so much that is outside of the ring, and especially when you first start, that understanding to slow down. When you think you're going slow, go slower. That's one of the hardest things to learn. You got happy feet, you just want to get out there and do stuff, and it's like being able to almost be forced to slow down and start
Mhm.
thinking about the other things is it's great that you were able to do that you had the opportunity to do that, and also you had the wherewithal to actually take the opportunity to do it. So
And then the other part too that I learned was like, so I've recently went back and watched my first match because I have the
it's
footage
always
of it.
fun.
Oh my god, bro! Like I was like, bro, you should have burned your boots. You suck, bro. Like you were the worst. Like just things that I take and I don't wanna say I take it for granted because that's not what I mean, right? But like I talk more to fans, I talk to my opponent, I talk to the ref, like I do like a lot of talking. And man, that first match I had, just silence. Like, just silence. I just like, bruh, I'm not learning anything. I'm just out here just trying to remember the match. I'm like trying to figure everything step by step. And I was like, bro, this is brutal to watch.
uh,
And it's only like 8 minutes long, but I was like, this is brutal, man.
Well,
Like,
that's the way it goes. I think that's all those things that you're talking about, right? They all come with reps. Those are
yeah,
all the mistakes that every single person who's ever laced up a pair of boots has made. You get out there and you go silent. Oh, I should have. That's all the extracurricular stuff that comes with time. That's what
yeah,
makes you a great professional wrestler and not, a wrestler.
yeah.
That stuff just comes with time. I mean, how long had you been training before you got that first match?
You know, it's
Realistically,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because like, I had 2 solid months right before January, February, and then obviously, like, March to May
Everything
got shut
stopped.
down. Yeah, 3 months of just getting stopped. Realistically, man, I think I had been training with those 2 months, probably, like, maybe 5, 6 months. That's
Yeah,
my
and I mean, dude, your first match 5 or 6 months into training, if nobody got hurt, that's a good match.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like everything needs to be put into perspective there. Like I think I had my first match probably 8 months in to
Mhm.
training. I would say, I was lucky enough that I didn't have a pandemic derail that training, so it was 8 months straight through, which definitely helped. But yeah, I go back and I watch that match, and I'm like, okay, I had an understanding. I've been watching it my whole life, and there's certain things I did where I was like, okay, yeah, that was okay. But you look at your ring positioning, you look at your footing, you look at all of the times where there should be something to an audience, or now 10 years in, I'm like, dude, the camera's right there. Feed to the camera, bro. There's a photographer in your face. Get that moment. That stuff that it took 4 or 5 years. It took training with Matt Taven and Vincent. Vincent was the guy who was the cameras.
Yep.
He was the first guy to kind of pull me aside and be like, I see what you're doing, but like, just turn. Just
Yeah.
turn your body. Find that lens. Do this, do that. And it was like door opened. Like 5 years in, you think I would have, maybe fine-tuned that a little bit, but it just takes that one guy who's been doing it even longer, who understands it, to go, hey man, just sell to that camera a little bit. And then it's you never You never forget that.
Well, even if you have guys who have trained for like TV and kind of like get that understanding, like I know, I had worked this match. The match was solid. They everybody told me they're like, "Yo, it was great." And one of my good friends pulled me to the side. He was like, "Yo, this was a great match. You were talking to everybody here. So what I need you to do is talk to everybody here."
Hmm.
And he's like, "The hard cam is right here. These people have already paid for you. They're here to cheer you on. You can interact with them here and there, but these are the people that you want to start talking to." And I took that to heart because like then the following match, I came out and the first thing I did, I just looked at the roaming cam. I like brought it to me and I was like,
Hmm.
"Hey," and then I do it now all the time. So I was just like, "Hey, you may want to hit record on this thing right now, or
There you
bring
go.
some friends around to come talk about what this is gonna be like, because it's gonna be amazing." And then like, so like, we just,
It's that little stuff, man. It makes
yeah.
all the difference in the world.
Well, and I see. So, and you bring up Vincent, and
Mhm.
listen. There's not very there's we all became fans, right, of professional
Of
wrestling,
course.
and there are very few times where I get captivated by a person, right? However, two people I can honestly say have always got me and wrapped me up in like the whole package, right? One of them being Bray Wyatt. I was a massive fan of seeing the Wyatt family. I was a fan of Husky Harris. Let's put
Mhm.
this out first.
There you go.
And then big fan of like what Bray was doing with the Wyatt family. Bigger fan of like Bray Wyatt and the Fiend, right?
Mm.
And just the way Bray talks, right? But Vincent, every time I hear that theme song, bruh, like I get goosebumps instantly down my arms, and I'm just like I'm wrapped up in the world. And I told him that, and
Mhm.
I was like, it is so weird to be engulfed in something, and I've only seen him a couple times, I watched a lot of the stuff on ROH, and then I saw him live once, but to like every time I hear that song and then I hear him talking, I'm like, bruh. Honestly, I realized like Bray Wyatt when he was with the Wyatt family, I hear him Vincent and his version of it with the Righteous, and I'm like, I get captivated in this whole world, and it doesn't happen often, but I find it all the time with those two, and I'm just like, I watch all their material because I'm like, I don't know what it is in particular that gets me to pay attention, but whatever it is, I'm trying to emulate that in the best way that I can as Red Dog
As
because it's
yourself.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I'm so fortunate, and I'm very very grateful that I was able to train with Matt Taven and Vincent when they had their school in Rhode Island, and Michael Bennett as well. He was with WWE at the time, so he wasn't there as frequently as the other two. And Maria stopped by, a handful of times, and she has a very underrated mind for the wrestling business as well. I encourage anybody to pick her brain if you get the chance as well. But yeah, those guys were great. They're good human beings. And I'm very grateful for the mentorship, and the subsequent friendships that have come from that. But Vincent, I think I think what it is that wraps you up in him, even once you're on the other side of the guardrail, right? And you have a little bit of more insider knowledge, but there are still those guys who can grab you even as a worker. I think it's just he's meticulous.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like you watch the vignettes that he puts up, and every detail has been thought of. The new stuff he's putting out, him and Dutch, with the record players and the all white backgrounds and stuff. It's
yep,
great. And it's very clear that from the wardrobe to the music to the direction to the production, these are things that other people aren't thinking about. And
right,
it's the only thing he's thinking about. And that's why he stands out.
yeah, and even just like because and it goes back to this like when you're doing live promos, right? Like the whole point is to get that audience to gravitate around you. And when listen to like a Bray Wyatt and I listen to Vincent's like speech pattern and their delivery, like I can't help but just be like, oh shit, like this is what it's like, right? And I think about those, like The Rock does it too, right? He
Sure.
has his own, but I don't know. There's just something that's so unique about the way they deliver it that I'm just like, bro, like I could listen to this all day, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, there's something in there that I'm just not seeing yet. And I guess I'd have to take the time to like really go out and like ask the question like, what is it that you're doing? Because it's definitely like I said, I get wrapped in it. But this ain't about the righteous or Bray or them, but it's about you. Like, so how is it? So you've gone, you've trained, you've been doing this for 10 years, man. Like, you're all over with NEW. I saw that you had recently worked Lucas Chase in WWE.
Yep.
Um, so a decade in the game, like how does Keith Youngblood continue to evolve and grow in this game?
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think an extent of it is kind of what's old is new again in a way. Um, when I started off, I was predominantly in a tag team, Adrenaline Rush, along with Daniel Evans, who I believe is now wrestling under the name Duke Danger. But he and I ran the tag game in the Northeast for a long time, and as the name suggests, adrenaline rush. I was the speed, he was the power. We were hard hitting and fast paced, and I was young, so it was just kind of like balls to the wall, bang your head type stuff. But as that evolved into, a rock star character, and then I ran that, as far as I felt I could at the time, with the pandemic happening, killing a lot of momentum, coming out of that, things needed to change a little bit. So I thought flip it on its head and do the Lost Soul, the complete opposite, dark, stoic, not speaking. What happened to Keith Youngblood? And I think it's in terms of character, now with the unrivaled Keith Youngblood, there are a lot of elements from that rock star character, the look, the presentation, the appearance, but now there's the experience added into that. That's where the unrivaled comes from. Like you said, 10 years in the game, um, harkening back to the rare breed character of I can take you in a mat game. I can take you in a striking game. I can fly. I got it all. You know what I mean? So in terms of continuing to evolve and progress 10 years in, I think a lot of that is the same as it is when you're brand new. I think it's making sure that you don't get an ego and understanding that from the top of the card to the bottom of the card for a show that you're on, everybody else who's on that show is on the same show as you. So why would you have a big head? Why do you think you're better than anyone else in that locker room with you? They're all there, same as you. They earn their spot on that card, same as you. So I think it's keeping an open mind, keeping your ears open, being willing to listen. And of course, there's things you need to filter out and you need to just be an adult and understand what should be internalized and what maybe doesn't need to be, because there are some bad takes and some bad advice. But I think it's just growing and understanding, like you said at the beginning of this, right? The whole idea of this podcast is you want to talk to people who have been in the game longer, who might have been places you want to get to. That's always going to be the same. You know what I mean? I've been blessed and fortunate to do a lot around in the Northeast. I haven't been able to branch out as much as I'd like. So anytime guys are coming in from places where I want to be, I'm going to have a conversation. I'm going to talk to these guys. I want to know, and even if they've been doing it less time or whatever, there's going to be worthwhile information there. So just keeping your ears open and staying in touch with, whatever's going on and the trends, and just trying to stay as healthy and in touch as you can.
Yeah, I feel like that that's like the last thing you just said, to stay healthy. Like when you're trying to grow and stuff like that. Obviously, like when you get injured, like obviously that's not where the road ends. So like obviously, and I'm not just talking about like we rehab and we build, right? We rebuild. We do, you gotta really take the time to think about like how am I gonna change my game? How am I gonna change it? Is there something cool that I can add to it that's gonna be different? I love the fact that you talk about like old things become new again, because like even for me, recently I've been kind of like, all right, I want to kind of get away from like this like loud, overly comedic type like character and get more back into like, oh yeah, we forgot that he's still a badass, and like now
Right.
he needs to get back to that.
Mhm.
Like if I want to make you bust a gut, I'm gonna make you bust a gut while we're doing our thing. But if I just feel like I'm just gonna beat your ass, like I'm gonna let you know I'm just taking you out to the woodshed and just beating you down. And I want to kind of get back to that, but because I think I've marketed the brand so much about like, yo, he has this fun comedy side and people love seeing that, like they kind of takes away. It's kind of like the art truth thing, right? Where like
Hmm.
Truth is in WWE, you know, he's kind of like the comedic guy. He goes to NWA, he does this thing, he comes back, they bring him back as the comedy guy, and then there's just that small time where little Jimmy, before little Jimmy became a thing, just Truth becomes a complete dick and just tears John Morrison apart. He fights John Cena at Capital Punishment, you know, and then like then they go back to doing a crazy thing with little Jimmy, and you know he starts going back to the comedy route. But for a period, people forgot like, oh yeah, our Truth is still that dude. Like you cannot mess around with him. You can't fuck with him like the way that you would think like, oh, well, he's just a comedy guy. He's not getting over. He's very much over. And I kind of want that aspect of like a dog flips back to being, you know, did his badass role, and then eventually, as I'll be fair, like I plan on wrapping up my stuff, my small run of on the indies here, like in the next few years. But when that happens, you know, we flipping back over to the comedy side and just kind of ending things and just enjoying it, and we'll see what happens after that. But yeah, I've been wanting to be like, yeah, people kind of forgot like, yo, Red Dog can actually get down, so he needs to kind of showcase that again. So I'm trying to like peel that back and let people know that that's still a thing out there.
Yeah, and I think that was a big part of the Unrivaled, the Unrivaled moniker when I wanted to change things up coming out of the Lost Soul. Um, I wanted to remind people I'm a damn good pro wrestler, and I think that's a part of my game that I think people have noticed, but I think and maybe it's in my own head, but I think a lot of times people maybe forget to mention me in the same breath as some of the other people in this area, even who are like wrestlers. You know what I mean? Like I'm a student of the game, and I got into professional wrestling because I'm an athlete, because I love wrestling. And I think that's something I kind of wanted to remind people of. So that was something that Unrivaled, kind of that's what I wanted to lean into a little bit more. Was sure I'm flashy and I'll wear the rock star stuff, and we'll have nothing but a good time. But when the bell rings, you best remember who you're in there with.
Right. I do like that aspect. I do like it's fun because like I see a lot of people who have like the rock star gimmick. You know, I think of like Nick Robles definitely at a cap. Like you know, being a student of the game, I like watching. I like the presentation. I have another friend down in Maryland. His name's Logan. He calls himself the handsome devil, but he's got like the rock star personality kind of going on. I love seeing that gimmick. I think the one thing I like seeing though is I like seeing everybody's unique perspective on where they pull from,
Hmm.
right? See a bunch of people pull from like the 80s, pull some people from the 70s. Then you have some people who will pull from like the flower power 60s, which I
Hmm.
definitely enjoy seeing that aspect of it too.
It's very cool.
It's very unique to see the whole game get played out.
Mhm. Yeah, and just people's different takes on everything. I mean, everything's kind of a derivative at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to come up with something entirely original. I mean, if you look at the beginnings of the Wyatt family, um, you know those early promos that Bray was cutting in NXT were literally line for line remakes of Waylon Mercy.
Yep.
So I mean, it's finding again what's old is new again. It's finding something that maybe you can put your spin on and blow it up.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's a lot of rock stars out there, and sure, I can run with the rock star vibe, but I'm not necessarily a rock star. I'm not going to play a guitar to the ring. You know what I mean? I have the charisma and maybe the look or the vibe of a rock star, but I'm not here to sing you a song. I'm here to wrestle. So that's kind of the where that unique touch comes into play.
I was gonna say, I like the bandana touch you got going on right now. Definitely very Brett Michaels.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um, no, I definitely love that aspect of like, yo, when the get down, like, hey, you let's be real, we'll just put it this way. You can beat people to the beat of your drum.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, yo, been in the game for a minute, so I need to know this, man. And everybody has one of these, so I need to know what's your worst bump?
Worst bump. geez, it's probably something stupid, to be honest. Those are always the things that hurt the worst. Like, I don't know, man. It's like the stuff when you're flying off a ladder or you're going through a table or something and you're like, oh man, this is gonna suck. It'll be cool, but it's gonna suck. And then you do it and like you're fine.
Yeah.
And then you work a match with like 4 bumps in it and you get to the back and you're like, oh, why is my hip hurt? Why is my knee hurt? Like it's always something stupid. Um worst worst bump. There's gotta be one that I'm not thinking of. Um I did something weird. I separated my AC joint in my shoulder on a DDT.
Mm, we trying to spike?
I did spike,
Mm,
but I also separated my shoulder.
yeah.
It was early in my career. And I've got some wonky shoulders to begin with. I knew that going in. But yeah, I mean that was strange and it definitely sucked. First time I ever took a top rope superplex.
Mm,
That's a rough bump. You know,
yeah.
guys do it a lot, but I think it's one of those kind of underrated bumps where you don't really think about it because you see guys do it, and then I'm 6'3",
Mm,
so I'm very rarely standing on the top rope with another guy. I don't mind flying, but being up there with someone else and then having to go over them is you end up pretty high. So that kind of sucked. I took a DVD off an apron through a table from JT Dunn at the MJN Center once. That was a rough bump.
yeah. Can
Yeah.
imagine that would be kind of difficult. I would not want to do that either.
It was fine. It was the first time I actually went through a table, and I went through and everything was good. It was a safe bump, but it was jarring, and it felt like my back um was like a slow burn.
Mm,
It kind of started throughout my whole back. I realized it was from the table, like the roughness of the inside of the board that
yeah.
like scratched my back, but it came in after the bump. That was a strange feeling.
Yeah. I remember like getting hit with a chair for the first time in the back and just feeling, yeah, I know that feeling when the impact hits and then it just kind of spreads and then
Yeah.
it's just like it's it's not a quick burn. It's not, I don't know how to put it, but it's just kind of, you have that burning sensation and then it kind of goes away. And I
Yeah.
remember like getting hit and the chair that hit me like folded around
Yes.
my back and I was like, that sucked
That sucked.
a
Yeah.
whole
Yeah,
bunch.
honestly, I guess I would say my worst bump would probably be uh, anything Danny Moff hit me with, because the dude is just an animal.
I it's funny because like uh one of my friends went viral because of Dan Moff.
Mhm.
And it's so funny to see him because his name is Will Knox, and you just see him get thrown into a wall, and he hits the wall and he sits down, and then you just see this chair fly across, and it hits him. And I was like, yeah, yeah, I've seen that happen a lot though. So it's always, I was like, I'm not shocked anymore when I see something happens like that.
Yeah, yeah, Danny Moff's spear is like getting hit by a car, so we'll go with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
I'm still here.
Yeah, still breathing, kind of. One lung. Yo, okay, so 10 years in the game, we've kind of talking about a lot of things that have gone on with this, right? I keep harping on that only because I need to know what's one of the hardest lessons you've had to learn being in the business.
Hardest lessons. It's a great question. I think there's a lot of it. I think kind of the comparison is the thief of joy is what I'll go with. I think that's the hardest lesson I had to learn because, you know, obviously you're not entitled to anything, especially in wrestling. You can work your ass off, but everybody who's doing this is working their asses off.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's hard to step out of your own shoes and realize that you're not always the main character. And, in your life, you are. So that's a hard thing to kind of, dissociate from. But yeah, I think especially early on or halfway through, the career, 5, 6 years in, you really start to nail things down and you're starting to get a good understanding of who you are and you're getting your reps in and you kind of feel like, oh, okay, like I'm hitting another level. So where is all the good stuff? And it's like, well, that's not how it works. You don't just put in your time. Guys do this 10, 15 years and maybe they stay at the same level they always did and they wrap their career up. There's nothing wrong with that by any means. But anybody who gets into this is, you know, I think it's safe to say is hoping for more. You want this to feed your family. You want this to pay your bills. You want this to be your 9 to 5, because it's something you love. And if you're able to do that, I mean, that's the dream, right? But at the same time, there is that harsh reality of there's a lot of people doing this, and a lot of it's going to break down to right place, right time, and that's just the way it is. So I think that that comparison is the thief of joy. Seeing other people, maybe get signed or get a big opportunity. And there's a lot of times where I would see that and I'd kind of, why are they getting that opportunity? Why didn't I get that opportunity? And it's like that toxic little voice in the back of your head that you can't pay any attention to. And realizing that is, that's a personal growth thing too, of being like, nah, be happy for these guys and girls who are doing this. They're getting the opportunity. Who cares why? They clearly did something that earned them that. It wasn't handed to them. So be happy for people who are getting opportunities and just keep working to get your own.
Yeah, that was something I had learned. I don't, because I had lived a whole I had lived a whole other life prior to getting into pro wrestling, and getting in, still I found myself 3, 4 years in, I was working at one company, I was busting my ass, the promoter had told me I was one of their top baby faces. And every time I turned around, they were like, "Yo, we're gonna put the championship on that person." Oh, well, wait a minute. What about what's going on with me? And I remember I found myself getting upset and
Yeah.
getting mad, and I was like, "Yo, but why is that person getting it? Why is that person doing this? Why can't I get that? Why can't I do this?" And I always I was always getting upset with this one company. And finally, I was like, "Bro, who are you? You're just a guy." I was like, and I think when I told myself that, I pulled myself back and I was like, I forgot that I really got into this because I just wanted to do this for fun.
Because you
And
love it.
yeah, so when I started seeing some of my friends get opportunities to wrestle in places that I hadn't been before, the only question I had for them was like, okay, what was the path you took to get here?
Right.
And how can I not follow it exactly, but maybe run a parallel path to it? Because
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was the best way to get it. Because I want to be like, yo, I'm not. I want to run that same path. It's so funny because when I moved to Massachusetts from Maryland, right? And this is gonna be the craziest thing. A lot of people are gonna find this out. My sole goal was just to wrestle on Wrestling Open
There
once.
you go.
That was it.
Yeah.
And then I made that happen, and I actually got 2 matches there, so that was,
Hell yeah. Good shit.
and that was it. That's all I wanted to do, and, and I've told myself, I would be great to be able to wrestle back on Wrestling Open again, but, I always told myself, I was like, if this is I'm not saying that this will be the end all be all, right? But if it is, I've already hit the goal. Cool. What else is gonna go out there? Let's try to dream a bigger dream. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is
Yeah.
where I wanted to be."
And that's awesome. And I think, when I first started training, I grew up, the local promotion to me that I was going to shows was Northeast Wrestling. So my first real goal was like, I just want to wrestle for Northeast. I just want to wrestle there. And then I went on a run there. I was on almost every show for, I don't know, 5, 6 years, longer maybe. I don't know. And people were calling me a Northeast original and all this other, this stuff, and are a mainstay. And it was like, yeah, I got frustrated, about, different opportunities that maybe I felt I was ready for or whatever. But at the same time, like you're saying, and you need to step back from that and go, well, this was the whole goal. It was just to be here. You know what I mean? So cool. I did that. I'm grateful for that. And now what can we do? And it's not about the comparison. It's about, okay, they're getting this opportunity for some reason. I'm gonna figure out a way to earn my own. And it's you know, just keep going at it.
Yep. And that's what I love about this business too, is that like you have a lot of people who everybody's very competitive and everybody understands that there's like so many roster spots you can be able to get for shows. But the one thing that really comes into play though is everybody has the ability to ask the question of like, hey, how do I get there?
Mhm.
And if you stop looking at it like, well, I do things better than that person, and you start looking at the aspect of how they get there and how can I get there,
Yeah.
it changes the mindset. Like, especially if you say like, what like I always tell like so when I'm not doing any of all this, I'm a personal trainer. And the one
Nice.
thing I tell everybody is like, hey, stop getting up in the morning and telling yourself, I have to do something. And start telling yourself, I get to do
Get to do it.
something. Yeah,
100%.
because it'll change your mindset 100%. So
Yep.
that's all I
100.
ever tell myself now. It's like right now, and I'll be fair when I tell people this, and you know, Denver, Colorado. I hope you're paying attention when I say this, but like I'm going to get back to wrestling open, and I'm going to wrestle another match there. Like it's gonna happen, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna just be excited when the opportunity presents itself. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna grind and just work my ass off. Like I don't
Yeah.
care. Like it's gonna be too much fun for me to not. It's so much fun to just hit the road and be able to travel.
Yeah, and it's a sport, and it's also a business, and I think
Mhm.
you can't take this stuff personally. You
Mm-mm.
just can't. It'll eat you alive. It's fun. It's supposed to be fun. So go have fun. And as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, the opportunities will come.
Yeah,
Just don't focus so much on it. Just focus on enjoying yourself, because that's when you're going to do your best work. That's when someone is going to see you and want to give you an opportunity, because you're doing your best work because you like what you're doing.
yeah,
So it's, you take it seriously. It's a discipline. You need to be focused and driven. I'm not saying not to be, but um, yeah, take a step back and enjoy the ride, because it goes fast, and it's you only have so many bumps on your bump card.
yeah.
So let's make the most of it, brother.
Does it ever go fast? I never thought that would be 6 years. And then January for me, it's gonna be 6. And I was like, I never
Crazy.
thought that that was gonna be a thing. I was like, this is maddening.
Yeah.
So, yo, so I'm gonna hop into my favorite part of the 3 Count podcast, which is the 3 Count podcast, 10 count questions. Mr. Youngblood, this is how it works. I'm gonna fire off 10 questions at you rapid fast, and whatever your answer is, that's your answer.
Okay. Let's give it a shot.
So we're gonna put on the imaginary timer for added pressure. Bing. And in the words of my favorite commentator, Mike Goldberg, here we go. SmackDown or Raw?
SmackDown.
Favorite movie?
The Crow.
That's a great pick.
Yeah.
My number one movie. Waffles or pancakes?
Waffles.
Favorite cartoon?
Oh, jeez. Uh, Avatar: The Last Airbender.
That's a great pick. Apple or Android?
Android.
Favorite TV show?
Dude. Oh man. I'm watching The Rookie right now, and I'm really enjoying that. So let's go with that.
Hey, Nathan is amazing, by
He
the
is.
way.
It's definitely not a favorite, but
Yeah.
for the sake of the imaginary timer, we'll go with The Rookie.
Yeah, well, hold on. Pause on the timer. I just want to throw my love to Nathan because, like, first of all, love me some Firefly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Love me some Halo
Yep.
because for those who know, no. And then also, yo, he's gonna be in he's in the new DC
Superman.
project.
Yeah, he's Green Lantern, right?
Yeah, he's Green Lantern. I'm like, yo,
So cool.
he's Guy too, so he's like the douchebag of
Yep.
the Earth Green Lanterns. So I'm
Doctor
hyped for it.
Doctor Horrible sing along blog.
Yeah.
Captain Hammer. I mean, come on, the guy's great.
Yeah, he's amazing. All right. Let's see. Marvel or DC? Speaking of which,
Comics, DC, cartoons, Marvel.
I like that. I like that. Favorite podcast?
Ooh. I've been really enjoying Comedy Bang Bang. It's hosted by Steve Aukerman. It's a improvisational comedy podcasts. I've been listening
Mm,
to a lot of them recently. They're great. Also, Pod Meets World, the Boy Meets World rewatch podcast.
yes.
Great podcast.
This is a great podcast. I actually, I found that by accident, and I was very grateful I did.
Yeah.
And I, yeah, weekly I'll be
Yeah.
listening to all episodes.
Yep.
So I was definitely when people were talking about the episode where, you know, Danielle Fishel and geez, what was her name? Oh, the redhead who came back on the show and they had their
Oh,
argument.
yes. Rachel was the
Rachel,
character's name.
yeah, Rachel,
Maitland, the actress.
Matlin,
Maitland,
Matlin,
something like that.
yeah. But yeah. Someone in this comment, you're gonna type it out. I know. Don't worry about it. We knew you IMDb'd it. Okay, so
Yeah.
don't worry.
Yeah.
Nominate one person you want to see on this podcast.
Oh, geez. Have you had Landon Hale on yet?
I have Landon, and Landon is a great friend of mine, actually. So
Okay. He's a
yeah.
really he's what a good human being.
Shout out to you. Congratulations, Dad. Like I want to throw it out there.
Yes. Yeah, for real. I'm gonna see him at Awesome Championship Wrestling this Saturday. So
Okay.
when is this dropping?
So actually, this will probably be dropping in a few weeks. So
Okay, so not
he'll
this Saturday.
yeah, not this Saturday.
Well, I'll be seeing him soon at ACW at the MJN Center.
Nice, nice, nice. Last but not least, my favorite question asked every single person who comes on this podcast. Favorite curse word.
That's tough. That's tough. I mean, there's always you gotta love a classic F bomb, a well
Classic.
placed F bomb. You can't
Yeah.
go wrong.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I think I gotta go with that. It's basic answer, but an
Yeah,
oldie
I
but a
talk
goodie.
whenever I have when I have people on and we talk about like favorite curse words. If we talk about the F bomb, I always talk about the YouTube video. I don't know if you've ever seen it or not. It's called The History of the F Word. It's just literally 2 minutes long,
I don't
but
think I
it's
have.
oh my god, it was this. Okay, so to age myself, this is a viral. This is a video that was going viral before like viral was a thing in
Mhm.
like 2003, 2004. Hilarious, bro.
I'll check that out.
Hilarious. Old school starts off with like the old school like violin like do 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 do, and then it just goes into like this whole history of the F word. It's hilarious. One of my favorite videos. If you haven't seen it yet, go look it up.
I
It's
gotta
like
look it up.
the best 2 minutes and 32 seconds of your life. Like I promise. But yo, those are all my questions I have for you. So the last thing I need you to do is let our listeners and our viewers know where they can find you.
So you can follow me on X or Instagram at K_Youngblood93. Facebook, you can just search Keith Youngblood. You'll find me there. YouTube, Keith Youngblood as well. Go subscribe there. I try to drop, new videos when I can and highlight reels and things of that nature. I know this is going to drop in a few weeks, so I won't plug this particular show, but Awesome Championship Wrestling. You can definitely find me there. Pioneer Valley Pro. Go follow them on socials. They're doing a lot of really cool stuff right now. Yeah, and then you'll find me around.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've seen like some of your stuff too. Like I've been watching. Like it's like, all right, he definitely promotes where he's gonna be. So if you guys
I
ever
do.
get
I
to,
do.
like, yeah, you'll find out where he's at. Well, shit. You guys know what this means. He gave you all of his handles. He even told you where you can even find him if you wanted to go watch him wrestle. So, like every great part of a wrestling match, we gotta take this home because this is the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering, and I'm your host Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you up that mountain called wrestling. And like every good Sherpa, it's never about me. It's about who's entering the ring. So who's entering the ring? You see him right there. He is unrivaled. He is Keith Youngblood, and you guys know what to do. Tune in to the next episode and be there, or you're legitimately following us on all of our social media platforms. You're even listening to us on Spotify. You're subscribed to our YouTube channel. You're even leaving us comments, shares, likes, all that fun stuff. You're leaving us 5-star Frog Splash reviews off of the Empire State Building onto your iPhone or Android if that's where you decide that you want to listen to us on. Regardless, leave those comments. You're even checking us out on that dumb app with the stupid jingle that goes iHeartRadio or whatever it is. You're checking us out on Amazon Music. You're even buying our merch, whether it's on foryourwear.com or on prowrestlingtees.com. You're telling your mom about us, your dad about us, your grandma about us, your grandfather about us, your uncles, your aunties, your cousins, your best friends, and your enemies because we love haters too. You're doing all that stuff, or really you're just kind of waiting for this episode to end? You're waiting for the outro, and then you're choosing another episode to listen to. Kawaii. What's up? It is your friendly neighborhood Red Dog, and thank you for checking out this episode of the 3 Count Podcast. Whether that was Chaz friends, Red Dog friends, Damien friends, the film styles, now entering the ring, now entering 201, or now returning to the ring, all those good episodes, you should really be liking, commenting, and even sharing this with your friends, family, whoever it may be. But what you all should be doing is checking us out on all of our social media platforms at 3 Count Pod. Whether that's on IG, Twitch, you can check us out on Threads, whatever it may be. And if you go check us out on X, it is 3count_pod. Check us out on YouTube, as well as Facebook, on Rumble, on Apple Music, on Spotify. All those fun things. Tell your mom about us, your dad about us, your aunties, your uncles, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, and your best friends and your enemies, because we love haters too. Do all that stuff. And then, last but not least, buy our merch on foryourwear.com or prowrestlingtees.com. Kawaii.